Yeah, so Alex, it's pretty raw intro. I never record anything. I just tell people I'm very glad that you take your time and record with me. So this is the intro.
Hey, that works. We could have not wished for a better time to do this. We've been planning on doing it for a while, and now forcefully we were able to find the time, and here I am. So thank you for the invitation. And this is actually the first podcast that I'm a host, that I'm a guest on. Sorry, that's in English, not in Romanian. So hopefully it turns out good.
How did you even like talk a little bit about your beginning? How did you get into the whole cannabis? Establish a YouTube channel, which I think is getting more attraction, right? In the last few months, I saw your video views just spiked up rapidly.
Well, the okay, let me start with the beginning. So how I got into the whole cannabis
Yeah,
scene.
and who are you as a person? What you
Yep.
do, your hobbies, and how it developed into that, I guess, path.
So I'm sure people hear an accent. I'm Romanian, born and raised in Romania. Moved to the United States once I graduated college back home. Came here with an internship that was a little bit 8 years ago, and I've been a fan of hip hop music since I was a little kid. Then started high school, fell in love with How High the movie. Big fan of Snoop Dogg, Tupac, Biggie. So I've heard about weed since I was a little kid. But living in Romania, it wasn't something that was accessible or something that people knew much about it. It was always viewed as a drug, and people were always talking down on people who were known to indulge in the devil's lettuce. But moving to the United States gave me the opportunity to have more access to it. It's more available here. It doesn't matter where you live. Come on. If people tell me like I can't get weed, I'm like, man, come on. You're not trying. You don't want it hard enough. If you're living in like Eastern Europe, I can understand, but the situation is so different here. Like you can literally find it anywhere. So with me being able to have more access to it, I started like learning about it, try to inform myself because I didn't want to be one of those people who just starts doing something for fun and then years in you find out you have a drug problem. Because again, my knowledge was not. I mean, I've seen the movies, I've seen the videos for the rap songs that I was listening to, but I didn't know any like info, any scientific data or anything like that. So I had to dig a little bit and find out my own info and make sure that what I'm doing is not bad for me, and that was somewhere in 2012. So 8 years since I've discovered a lot of benefits that I get from cannabis, and a few years in, seeing how my life developed, having this new medicine, because for me it's a medicine. I use it for, we all have the chatter in our heads that sometimes we need to put on hold because you can't live your life always listening to what your head says. And then I used to be overweight at one point in my life. I was smoking cigarettes, drinking a lot of alcohol. So when weed came into play or cannabis came into play, I started looking at all of these things as like I'm doing myself. Uh, how should I put it? I'm not doing myself any favors by indulging into, smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, eating junk food all the time and all of that. So cannabis kind of put me on the path towards regaining my health. And after I've done that, dropped a lot of weight, started feeling healthy, quit cigarettes, cut down my alcohol intake, even though I live in Wisconsin, which we all know is known for the amount of alcohol that people drink. And after all of that happened, I just kind of felt the desire to try and spread everything that I've experienced and learned, try to tell other people about it. And in the beginning, I was just getting into listening to podcasts. This was like 6, 7 years ago. YouTube was still not a very big thing then, and it wasn't like now when anybody can do a YouTube video. Back then, people were still like, "Oh, you're telling me I can just film something?" And so this wasn't a thing. And I was trying to find the medium for me to communicate all of this. And I had a shitload of ideas in my head, but I like, Facebook pages, Instagram accounts and whatnot, but nothing really materialized the way the podcast and YouTube channel ended up materializing. So this is something that I started around 3 years ago. I just stopped driving trucks because I used to drive semis for like
I was a
3 years.
dispatcher, so I feel you.
Oh, so yeah. And while I was on the truck, all I was thinking about is, man, if I was home, I could enjoy cannabis because when you drive, you're not allowed. I could enjoy my cannabis. I could use this time instead of being behind the wheel to like communicate to people and start making, I don't know. I just wanted to do something content wise, but I didn't know exactly what. So then I stopped driving, and I was already a big fan of Joe Rogan's. So I was like, why not start a podcast? So I started a podcast. It caught, I mean, for your first episode to have like a couple hundred listens, that was wow. And it was audio only. So that kind of gave me the motivation
Can you interrupt you for a little bit? Was
yeah,
that podcast in Romanian and you posted in the Romanian sites? Is that
yeah.
how you
So
know, or was it?
no. So with me being from over there, I kind of had I don't know what to call it. I didn't want to go into the US market. I wasn't confident enough. So,
But
and
but is there a perception where I know I'm Lithuanian because I know when like you live in the United States and they see you from United States, they're like, oh, this is a cool Romanian from United States. Was it
I
like
mean,
perception?
yeah, I'm sure there's a little bit of that. I don't want to say 100%, but I'm sure there's a little bit of that because I just put myself in the position of somebody living in like in a country like Romania, and then finding about someone who's from your own country but lives in the States. And when you live and when you're raised back in Romania, you know about the States from movies. That's the image you get, so in your head it's kind of a cool thing. And I think that might have had a little bit to do with how well the podcast was received. And then people started like giving me feedback and asking me to do it video. And I was a little bit reluctant in the beginning because I never had any experience with cameras. I was never into taking photos or videos or whatnot. So I was a little bit of hesitant. I was really awkward in front of the camera in the beginning because
What
when you
did you
just
shoot your first video with a phone or you bought a camera?
I actually did it with this webcam, man. I did like top 5 cannabis myths, something like that. It's a really bad video, but it's still on, so people can go watch it if they're interested. But that was that was
We'll try to find a link and put it below after.
okay. I can send you everything that you need.
Yeah, we'll do
So
it.
so I mean, in the beginning when I started, I said audio is okay to talk about cannabis because there's not a face. People won't be able to like, show me like point their fingers at me and be like, this is the druggie that talks about weed online in Romania. But then I saw the positive feedback, so I was like, man, I think this is what I've always wanted to do after I found out what cannabis did to me. So why am I, being scared to do it now when, okay, I've done it audio, let me try and do it video because people, if they associate a face to the voice, they can relate even more. They're more willing to listen. And I did my second episode. So the first episode of my podcast was not about weed. The second one was like a history of, like a modern history of cannabis, how it ended up being illegal, why is it still illegal, how did some countries legalize it, and all of that. And that clicked with people. And a lot of people did not know all of that stuff that, for somebody who's in the community, for somebody who's did their reading and research, the stories, you know everything about but people back home did not know that because we don't have any content in Romanian. So the only information that we had in Romania was the propaganda. And people to this day, a lot of them still refer to weed as like a getaway drug. They still think the Schedule 1 classification means that weed is as bad as heroin and all the other stuff that's in there. And that kind of encouraged me to break it down Because in the beginning I was okay. I'm going to talk about weed, make it clear to people and whatnot. But then people asked for more info, and in my head it became more clear that you can break this topic down and take it easy and try and teach people everything from, like, if you were to teach somebody how to read, you would teach them from A, all the letters, all the way to Z. Then, so you would go through a process. So I said, okay, it's obvious that there's no information, there's no education on the matter, on the subject in Romania. So I'm going to assume the role of the person who tries to re educate how many Romanians are following me about the subject. Because it's my belief that without information and education, you're not going to get anywhere, especially when it comes to weed. And I think the biggest problem and the main reason why to this day is still illegal in most parts of the world is the lack of information, is the lack of people talking about it. It's the big stigma that's still present in a lot of places. And a lot of people don't want to, they don't want to come out and show themselves as being like, hey, this is me and I think cannabis is good, because they're afraid of the backlash and, again, people pointing fingers and whatnot. But it turned out to be way better received than I thought it's going to be. And, slowly what I try to do is I try to make it fun. So I'm not just sitting in front of a camera and, taking you through like the science. I try to use a language that the young kids understand, because the biggest problem in Romania is with the young generation. They're not as close to cannabis as the older generations, but they're not informed. So you see a lot of kids going out on the streets buying shit thinking it's cannabis. So Romania had actually a very, very big problem with synthetic weed and, spices and whatnot. And even to this day, there's kids that, they're being tricked by people selling them shit, saying, hey, buy this, buy that. And it's because they didn't know how to make the difference. So I said, okay, let me tell them, how do you make the difference between cannabis and, synthetic cannabis? What is synthetic cannabis? What should you expect after you consume it? How you consume it? So all of that, and try to break it down in small bits of information and trying to find a way to make it engaging and fun for the people to watch. And maybe this way, some of that info is going to stick with them, you know and since I started, so that was 2017 to 2020, it changed a lot, man. You can't even imagine the openness that people have now when talking about it. They'll post pictures on Instagram, on Facebook with them with a joint in their mouth or doing bong rips or stuff. This was unseen, unheard of 3 years ago when I first came up. So imagine my second podcast was audio only, and people were commenting like, aren't you afraid of going to jail just for talking about it? So I wasn't even on camera smoking or like, doing it. I was just talking about it, and people were leaving a bunch of comments like, how are you not afraid of, be careful, FBI is listening, or, whatever, stuff like that. And the way it is now, and so many other people have jumped in the boat, is just incredible. In the beginning, I thought it's going to be something that, I'm going to do it for a while. Hopefully there's some nice results, but I never expected it to get this big. I never expected it to have this much of an impact, and slowly other people were encouraged, people who are more knowledgeable than me. So I am by far the least knowledgeable of all the people that do content about cannabis in my country online. But I see myself as the one who opened the gates. And I don't claim to be the best or know the most or whatnot. And I've given everybody who knows more and wants to do this an opportunity to come on my platform and share all their information. And slowly we ended up growing a big community. So my following is like 36, I think, 35,000, something like that on YouTube. And then I have all the other, social media stuff and whatnot. And we're slowly getting to that point where in Romania, if you talk about cannabis, people are not going to look at you weird. just like you're a junkie from the corner of the street.
Dude, when you started the podcast, did you move here with your parents or by yourself?
No, so it's just me. I'm the only one here. All my family's back home.
How did you communicate with them when you started making the podcast, or did they find out eventually?
I mean, they follow everything I do, dude. It's actually funny. Like whenever I do YouTube lives or Instagram lives or post a podcast or whatever, they're the first people to watch. So in the beginning, my dad's really open. He's tried this before. He's had experiences with it. He was very open to learning. So there was no judgment from my dad's point of view. My mom was a little bit skeptical, and then my dad actually came to visit 3 years ago. Yeah, and I saw him just trying to talk to me and be like, "Okay, can you tell me a little bit more about this? What it is? What does it do?" Then he was kind of like observing me whenever I would smoke, just to make sure that he wanted to just observe. And then at one point he was like, "Do you mind if I try a little bit?" And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? So, he tried a couple of smokes, and then that became like a habit. We did it every day, man, and we would go watch movies. Because he came from Romania here for a month
Yeah.
in January in Wisconsin. What are you gonna do in January in Wisconsin? It's so cold, you can't, there's not a lot of stuff. So we would just blaze, and we would go watch a movie, would go ski, would go to the bar, or just have fun. And then he went home, and I think he told my mom about it and whatnot. So my mom started being a little bit more open, and last year they both came to visit, and she finally got to see it in person. So all her worries went away, because I'm sure she was worried that the belief that you smoke weed, you're gonna go crazy, you probably do other crazy drugs and shit like that. So she came, she observed with her own eyes, she saw that he's responsible. He has a couple of jobs. He takes care of his health. He takes care of his relationship. So I'm doing everything a normal person would. It's just that I'm doing it while I enjoy cannabis as well. And then she started listening to podcasts where I had doctors on, you know,
Hmm.
and people who don't smoke weed, but they're activists because they have a parent or a child that needs, medical cannabis, so they're fighting the fight. And then she started being more open, and now she's a psychotherapist.
Hmm. Cool. Cool.
So people listen to her when it comes to stuff like so. And now she's sharing, like whenever I have an interview with like a doctor or a specialist or whatnot, she'll be the first to share. So it was a little bit of a process to bring them on, but I tell people all the time, man, just by saying stuff, the probability is nobody's gonna listen to you. You can be like, hey, I
So
smoke
true.
pot, but then I go and I run and I do this and I do that, blah. Nobody's gonna believe you. So shut up, just do it. Don't, and people are gonna judge you by your actions. If you make sure that you take care of your part, nobody's gonna be able to. I mean, even if they do, they have no arguments, because your argument is like, just look what I'm doing, just watch me. So the power of example, I think, for people who consume cannabis, the power of example is the best argument that they have in their favor. So if somebody points a finger at you, you're like, dude, you don't know me. If you knew me, you wouldn't do that. And that's a message that I try to tell people who follow me. And I've received a lot of good feedback from them, especially people who had like issues with their parents because of it. And even though I tell them, if you're at the age where you're worried that your mom and dad might not agree, you probably shouldn't be doing it, because I tell people I'm at the belief that you should be at least 25 when you indulge in cannabis the way I do, because I'm a pothead.
Same.
I'm not
No,
gonna
same.
hide.
I've always had this thing when I was young. Obviously, obviously everybody smoked. I smoked a shit ton. When I was young too, there was one point. My school was pretty small too, like so 2,000 people, and it was pretty. I would say Caucasian whites, and there was like this terminology when you're in sophomore or junior year, you kind of go through a period where you sell a little bit of weed. Everybody did, and like people did it in a bigger scale, smaller scale, and then there was like football players and everybody, but it was just enough to supplement their drinking money to go get McDonald's during parties and shit like this, like gas money. It was
Uh-huh.
nothing. It was nothing major, but I was that at one point too when I was selling auto weed, I was like, I mean, smoking like heavy, like almost as equivalent to now. But just in herb and with different extractions and all this shit going on right now. I had the same belief too, like, oh, anybody could smoke, but then I heard somebody saying there was a good point is like, how would you teach your kids? And I think I would let my kid smoke when he and there's no like there's no exact verbal communication, but it's more of like when you see your kid understand what it is for what
Hmm.
it is. It's not just like,
When it
hey, let's
clicks
get
in.
yeah, when it clicks and you see like, oh, okay, yeah, if just don't fucking hide it from me, invite me to smoke, or something like this. And then a little shift happened too when I was like a few years later too, and I was like, holy shit, like maybe it's not good. Like I I don't think it's bad for kids. I think it's better for kids to actually like try smoking weed in high school than going out and drinking and try like getting alcohol poisoning, like which commonly we all did that. I think it's way better, but if you're really starting to pick up the habit or you enjoy it recreationally, I would definitely say like 25. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, and it's crazy how many young people are like, "Hey man, I used to do it, but then I heard you talk about like your brain is not fully developed until around the age of 25, and you might be putting yourself at risk because we don't know. We don't have enough research to say does it affect or not. So we don't really know. It's like playing Russian roulette.
Yep.
And a lot of people, when they understand that, and when it comes from somebody who does it, on camera, it's not like I don't have any vested interest for you not to smoke.
Yeah.
There's enough around for everyone. I don't gain anything from you. Now, I'm not the authority that tries to keep this shit away. So when it comes from me, kids are more willing to listen because they're like, wait a minute. So he does it, but he's saying that we shouldn't do it because
It's like a paradox.
I, yeah, I guess, I mean, he he must have a point. And then even if they don't believe me right away, they do their own research. I offer them everything that's out there, and then they write me saying, dude, thank you very much. I'm gonna wait 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, whatever it is. And then I also tell them, like, by the time you're gonna be of age, you don't know what the legal situation might be. It might be legal. The access to good quality, the lack of stigma, the lack of risk of you exposing yourself to smoking shit because you have to buy it off the black market, all of that's going to be gone. You're just going to go to a store the way you do in Colorado, pick your stuff, buy it, and go enjoy it. It's really sketchy the way it happens now. And you used to live in Illinois. I mean, it is legal now, but for most of your life, it was.
Right when I left, that's when medicinal was legal, but right when I left, literally that week, that's when they legalized recreational too. And there's a shit ton of stigma even in my town in Illinois where I lived. It's a little bit
What town
more
is
white.
that, if you don't mind me
Lamont,
asking?
Lamont.
Lamont. Okay.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's out of Rock Falls.
Rock Falls or Rockford.
Rock Falls. So
Oh, Rock
it's a
Falls.
little bit more south of.
Oh,
It's by
south. Yeah.
Dixon. It's by Dixon.
Yeah, I'm like west. I was west, like 20 minutes west of Chicago, 25 minutes. But they even had the whole like town meetings to not put dispensaries in the town. And what I noticed too is actually they're trying to put like dispensaries in minority towns, like shittier where there's a little bit more minorities, Latino or African American, and try to put them over there. And then I mean, it's sort of ridiculous at the same time, obviously with all the regulations, but the prices too are just completely.
Oh
It
my
almost
god.
seemed like they did it on purpose so they could get more people to do it underground, so they could still have police catching the people underground because it's. I mean, for anybody that knows the prices, who's gonna pay $67 for an
For an
eighth?
eighth, dude, it's like I was in Chicago a few weeks ago, and I was like, I was on Weed Maps. I was like, let me check to see if there's a dispensary close. I can go and buy some. So I go through the menu and I see 60 some dollars for an eighth. I was like, you people are insane. What you're doing is getting people so angry that the black market's gonna grow even bigger. That's not how you do it. Like I look at
It's
it's
kind of
one
like
of those
almost like
things like,
California.
is it the same in California, you said?
No, there's a lot more now. I'm not even gonna get into it, but there's a lot more on like dispensary level and all the laws and regulations changing. So it's actually like pushing people to go back to black market again.
So all of the progress that we had so far.
Something new came out. I'm not really. That's why I'm not gonna verbalize on any
Uh-huh.
of it. But something new came out that completely switched the flick, and everybody's going back to underground. And a lot of dispensaries and legal people that actually like dreamed of owning something, now they're getting fucked by taxes and all this stuff, and everybody's returning back to the roots,
Well,
grassroots.
the positive part of that is the quality and the knowledge has increased with so many years of, having places that is legal. So from that point of view, we're gonna have good weed no matter what. But it is a little bit sad because I live here in a state where it's fully illegal in 2020. I don't know how that happens, but you know, it is what it is. And then I come from a country where it's still illegal. And to try and see everybody working towards a progress because they see places like the United States working on it, they see Canada, they see, and then you're starting to put the wheel into motion, and then you're trying to get updates from the countries who do it well, and they're like, well, I don't know what we're gonna do about this. We're So it's a little bit discouraging because whenever I tell people it can be done from back home, I always show them how the United States does it. And to have this happen here, it's a little bit discouraging, but I'm sure people are gonna. It's not gonna go back to the dark ages. So
Speaking of starting your podcast, when you started originally, I know everything was Romania. Did you, by any chance, get picked up in a local locality of Madison, Wisconsin, or anything like that?
so when I started, I was not living in Madison yet. I was living in Wisconsin Dells. I don't know if.
Oh, yeah, no, no.
Okay,
Girl,
so
yeah, went there when I was a kid.
yeah, all the water parks. So it's a very Republican town, a lot of old people with money, and the it, I I don't think there's anybody else doing a podcast out of Wisconsin Dells. So even in Madison, I don't know how many people are doing podcasts in Madison. And you're actually the first person who's reached out from the cannabis industry to talk to me. And I mean, I'm not expecting more people because my content is in Romanian, and unless you speak Romanian, there's no way for you to understand. So but it's nice, it's nice to have the opportunity and phrase thoughts and ideas about the subject in the language of my adoptive country rather than just Romanian, and exchange ideas from people who live here. And it's a different reality here, man, compared to what happens in Eastern Europe when it comes to cannabis. It's at least 20 years ahead what's going on here compared to what's going on over there. So I'm using this as an opportunity to, gain more knowledge from people like you and other people I have the opportunity to come across, and hopefully spread it to my own country, and hopefully people get something valuable out of it, and it helps them change their ideas and positions even more.
All right, so since you didn't really get noticed in Madison, was there any people in the local areas that reached out to you, or did you come by or anything?
No, man, I've kind of been doing this by myself. So this has, from the beginning, everything's been a solo work. I've learned how to do everything from freaking audio, video. I did not know anything, man. I didn't know how to take a photo. I didn't know how to edit a video. I didn't know how to edit audio. I didn't know how to do ads on social media. I wasn't present on social media. So it was a learning process that was fun, and it still is. And I don't know, maybe that put me in a position where I kind of think of this as like I do everything by myself, and I view it as I'm the one who has to reach out to people instead of have them reach out to me. But I mean, dude, I'm open. If anybody wants to reach out, And I've also been thinking about maybe trying and do some content in English, because it's obvious speakers are the majority in the world, or at least the majority that watch YouTube or listen to podcasts or whatnot. So I think that would be an opportunity also, because Romanians, most of them speak English, sorry, or they understand English.
Yeah,
So
I think in Eastern Europe in general, like I remember when I left Lithuania, like all the kids my age now, it's normal. If you go to Lithuania and you're my age, you, more than likely, I would say like 80% of the people you're gonna meet, it's like a universal language now. You're gonna
yeah,
be
man,
able
I
to
mean,
communicate.
the language of the internet is English. So if you're on the internet, you speak English. So I don't know, I'm trying, maybe I'll do some stuff and then see how that goes. I've been having my eyes on some content creators from here that blew up in a few months, dude, compared to, like, I've been working on this for 3 years, and for Romania, with the subject matter that I have, cannabis, which was a completely banned subject, to be able to get to 36 or whatever subscribers I have on YouTube, and people who tune in, and people who support me on Patreon, or their channel members, that thing is awesome. So I'm just trying to see how that would scale if I would do it for, English speaking people, because the same issues that we have in Romania, people have it here. Maybe not in Madison, because it's a more liberal, a more open town when it comes, even though cannabis is illegal, it's tolerated here in
Yeah, yeah.
in the town of Madison. So people, I mean, you can be stopped in traffic and have an ounce of herb on you, and nobody's gonna. I mean, you might get a ticket, but you're fine. If that would have happened in Wisconsin Dells, you get big time jail. So, and plus other countries where people speak English. They might not speak Romanian, but they speak a little bit of English. And there's other countries, not just Romania, going through the same stuff. That's not just something that Romania goes through. So I think they would be able to find value in what I try to teach.
Did you ever think about bridging, like you were starting, we actually went back and forth on DMs on Instagram talking about like you doing the English podcast. I was thinking if you started bridging the gap and explaining the Romanian history and the propaganda, and maybe infusing your own experience, how you started your YouTube channel, all the feedback that you got from the Romanian people, and then you saw the shift. That could be kind of translated into English as of introduction, like, hey, I'm starting in a
You're smart,
um,
my friend.
an English
I
channel. I
was
think that'd be interesting too because like you see, like when we talk now, it's like for us, it's like almost like a fucking triangle if you think about it. You're in Wisconsin. We came from Europe, fucking both communist towns where Eastern Europe is just completely raped by the Soviets, and then all the ideologies just waterfall down for years. Now we're in the United States and one of the greatest countries to do all this shit. I'm in the weed capital, I would say, of America, besides California. But
No,
all
I
the shit,
say Denver. Everybody says Denver is the capital.
I think Colorado in general is just the state to get the business going. I think there's a lot of people that want to join and do some cool stuff. But like when you think about it, like we're talking right now, I always keep going back, like, hey, this was like this in Lithuania back in the day, and now it changed. And I'm referring back to your topic of Romania, and then you kind of referred it back from Romania to Wisconsin, and then it's a kind of like a flip flop, and we're both comparing points. And I feel like that's like super interesting when you get to the point where you actually hear people's feedbacks, how it changed and like actually getting direct answers because of you. Somebody's been watching you for a while and they're like, dude, if like me and my friends, instead of drinking a shit ton, we started watching our podcast, we smoke now, and we do creative stuff, we don't go around yelling and kicking and screaming and shit like that.
Yeah, dude, and there's a value that you're probably not even aware of. Most of the times you're doing stuff like that, and then all of a sudden you just get a DM and you're like, "Thank you, dude. Because of you, I managed to, I don't know, drop this much weight, or I managed to quit smoking, or I managed to quit drinking, or I've taken a break from cannabis because I've been smoking for 5 years all day, every day, and I started having an unhealthy relationship to it. So even I don't know, man. It's rewarding. it's rewarding. Even if you help one person and they tell you about it, the feeling that you get is fucking incredible. So that makes you want to do even more. So that's I'm thinking I don't know where I was going with this, but I was gonna say that if I do start doing this in English, and your idea of using this as like the introduction to, hey, this is me. I've been an activist in the country of Romania. Been doing this. I've helped, the whole thing get to this point. Now I feel like I want to transcend, and I feel like that would be a good opportunity for me to be able to try and help even more people. And I know it might sound corny, and people might listen and be like, "Yeah, the fuck you want to help people," but unless unless you get one of those messages, or somebody calls you and you have like a video call with them and they tell you, and you see, it's honest. You're like, whoa, I didn't know that I can have such an impact. And most of us in our lives think that, our lives are empty. We're not really doing anything for the larger purpose or whatnot. Helping one person, one single person, will help you not even think of that issue, you know? It's so valuable. And that's one thing I love about cannabis and the cannabis community. Everybody's pretty close, because you have this one thing that you're usually you know excluded for, or people don't want to be around you because you're a drug head. I remember with my Romanian friends, when I was walking everywhere smelling like weed, and you're a dumb young stoner, and just the way they were, and they lived in the United States. So these are Romanian friends that live in the United States. So we've met since we've been here, and just the way they were looking at me in the beginning, like very skeptical, and like, oh my God, we've lost you. You've been here for less than a year, and we've lost you. And now most of them are potheads, and they're like, dude, thanks to you, we found this thing that we were trying to find by drinking a lot, or because it helps with stuff that you usually resort to alcohol, or traditionally you resort to alcohol or whatnot. And now they thank me. Before they were like being very skeptical, and they had me labeled as one thing, and now I'm like, so it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. I think the most fun of the whole process is just to see how it went from being really, really, really underground to something that's becoming more and more mainstream. And that has happened here in the States for a while now. But in Romania, where there was nothing, it's just fun. It's just fun to see, like, I don't know. I'm proud. It's like one of those kids that I helped babysit, and he turned out to be like the guy that found the, I don't know, the coronavirus antidote. And you're like, maybe something that I've done helped them get to that. So I'm like a proud parent.
Let's talk a little bit about when you started filming. Was there any when you started it? You said you were doing more of like audios in the beginning, right?
Yeah, because my background is actually as a DJ. So I used to
No, no
DJ.
shit. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah. I
music?
DJ techno, electronic, house, deep house, all of that stuff, minimal. So I've always been in love with music and audio. And since I can remember being a little kid, I always dreamed of having my own radio show. And, being a fan of podcasts, driving a truck, you listen to 100 million podcasts. That's all I was doing. So I was like, okay, let me do my own podcast, because I really love the idea of that's just like having your radio show. You don't have to worry about, how you look, how you act in front. You don't need camera skills. You don't need whatnot. Audio skills with me DJing, it was pretty easy to like figure out what you have to do and whatnot. So that's how it basically started, and then switched to what I'm doing now. And it's changing continuously. It's not set in stone, it's not how it used to be when I started. It's not even how it used to be 7 months ago. I'm always coming up with new ideas or things I want to try. And back in September, I went back to school to study visual communication so I can get
Mm.
more skills in, video production, sound production, graphic design, web design. Because again, this comes from that spot where I told you I feel like I have to do this all on my own somehow, because I do my content for a country where, again, in the beginning where I did, nobody else was doing it, so I was alone. I'm doing it from here without having access to going over there, so I can't really meet people in person, and you know. So I don't know. It kind of felt like I need to get all the skills necessary to be able to sustain this by myself, because I'm looking at this as something that's long term. This is a long marathon. Like, I'm looking at Be Real and Cypress Hill. Man,
Yeah,
those guys
yeah,
have been doing that stuff for 30
for
some years.
years.
And just now, like, I look at Be Real's YouTube channel and he's not getting the views, that he would deserve. 30 some years in, man, Mount Cushmore, and you're still, so this is a marathon for all
Yeah,
of
and,
us. And
and I
that's
mean it is, dude. It's I mean, when you look at it, like you said, I think in the beginning of the podcast, when people are scared to talk about cannabis, like, dude, probably nobody's gonna listen to you, and no one's. You might not even get one click on your first piece of content, whatever you release, and it's like, stop worrying about it. But yeah, and I mean, if you look at it, I always look at the what's it called, Mike Tyson's hotboxing, right?
Yeah, I follow it too. I haven't seen the new
And
M
and
episode.
you see how, like, some guests fluctuate when they only get, like, 100 to a 200,000, and the other one's like 1.6 million, and then some of the guests that have 200,000, it's like, dude, how do you, like, you're one of the top two, is like, how do you get less than other people? And it's like, dude, it all fluctuates. It's about, if you keep that interest going, if you bring the community behind you onto the podcast that supports the same subject, it's like transversal, like all over the place. But I wanted to speak about you when you started YouTube in general. Was there any, like, how did you plan your content in the beginning? Was it just like, fuck, I'll do one video a week, or was it something that you've like, all right, maybe I should talk about this or that?
So in the beginning with video was more of so it was like totally new ground for me. I've
Hmm.
never filmed anything. I've never opened any video editing software. I wasn't watching a lot of movies because I was always thinking about watching movies as a waste of time. I'm like, I could, I don't know, read a book or listen to a podcast and actually learn something. I didn't see the value in it.
Yeah.
And then I remember I was on YouTube and I found Casey Neistat. And I was like, what the hell? Who is this dude? I had no idea. Like, I was oblivious to vlogs or anything like that. So in my head, all of this was supposed to be a podcast and podcast only. So then I was watching his vlogs and I'm like, oh my God, man, how can a person tell a story by doing the most random, boring shit? Because most of the episodes, like, you go on your skateboard, you've seen
Yeah,
that.
if you look at it from a different perspective, it's just like what you would do, except he just knows how to put things around in
Yeah,
different
he knows
perspectives.
how to tell the story. And I was like, man, I can see the value of video, how you can tell a better story through video than you can from audio. So I started just like binge watching everything that I found from Casey. And then I started looking at other people and I try to figure out how I can implement like that storytelling in a video so I can still talk about cannabis and still try to teach people about it without them getting bored. And that's when I started like vlogging. So I would just like I started filming the most random shit in my, just like my daily stuff. But I always try to show that despite the fact that I'm smoking, and I try to do a lot of it just to show it's not like, okay, I did 2 puffs and then that's it. No. So I did a lot of it just to prove that despite of that, you can still do everything that a normal person does. So my number one thing was try to teach people the importance of staying healthy, both mentally and physically. So I would vlog about, I would go on runs trail runs, because when I lived in Wisconsin, there's a lot of like, open forest space that you can just go and run. And people really loved that. Then I took it to like, okay, encourage people to read, get educated, start listening to podcasts, start doing all of that. And people started becoming receptive just because there was a character, the character being me. I don't know how much they cared about the story or the way it was filmed or edited, because in the beginning it was garbage. I don't think they cared a lot because they kept watching. My subscriber count went up, more comments, people wanted more stuff, started giving me ideas, but I didn't have anything scripted, or I didn't have a schedule in mind, or I literally had no plan. I was freestyling everything. And in the process, I was trying to read books. Like I read Gary V's books. I read Think Media, the YouTube book. I forgot what it's called. I don't know. I read a bunch of books. I watched a lot of videos like, okay, how to do your thumbnails, how to tag your videos, how to, just try to learn it bit by bit in a way that's still fun. Because I've always looked at it as a hobby, or at least in the beginning. So the hobby ended up being like this thing that people wanted to be on. Because then after I got, through vlogging and whatnot, I got to like 20 some thousand subscribers. And then people who had,
Is
like
that when
doctors.
is that when you started doing long form conversations, podcasts, like 20,000 or?
No. So the podcast was actually the first thing. And when I started, my
Oh,
podcast
okay,
were
okay.
3 hours long. Because I
Well,
had
what was your like approach to the first podcast? Because you know how like do you have a lot of friends that ask you like how did you start a podcast? Like I don't know what to talk about, all this shit. Well, did you have the same things like in the beginning? Like what am I going to talk about? And then you roll the podcast and you're like, shit, dude, I was just there for like almost 3 hours.
Dude, the thing is that that's probably one thing that I'm really lacking is a community of people who do the same thing. Because none of my friends have any interest in any of this. No podcasting, no, nothing. So I have to do everything by myself again because of it. So I didn't have that question. But in the beginning, I had a lot of my friends on. And it was always that weirdness, like, how does my voice sound? Oh my God, do I have to wear headphones? My voice sounds like garbage and stuff like that. And I thought I would be able to get them to fall in love with it, but they didn't. So I finally moved on, and I started doing like actually approaching people, from the community, like again doctors, or sometimes I have artists on, or sometimes I'll have growers, or whoever I can find that speaks the language that has anything to do with cannabis, because it's not like in the United States. Here you're able to find thousands of people who've, even if you talk to a bud tender, that's interesting. I don't
Yeah,
have I don't have that opportunity in Romania. There's no such things, you know. There's no Romanian bud tender that lives in Romania.
yeah.
So I would try to get people on who had literally anything to do with cannabis, and that list is kind of short. So then you end up having to do episodes on your own. And I kind of became really good at that, because my episodes now that I have by myself are like 45-minute, 1 hour long, and it's basically just me ranting about a certain subject. And if it's one thing that I can say is a big win since I started doing this podcast, is the capability of talking about something, for a longer period of time. Because when you have conversations with people, if you don't do this, they're usually very like short. Everybody talks over everybody. People usually listen so they can fill in. They don't actually listen. They just wait their turn to talk. But once you start doing this, you learn how to conversate with people. You learn that you need to let the person maybe think a bit before they speak, or before you speak over them. And so I feel like this is a big win that I got from podcasting. And if I would to be, encouraging anyone to start doing this, if there's a reason why you would want to do it, is this. you have no idea that there's an art to talking to people and having a dialogue. And you don't know that until you have to do it in a way that sounds good to be re-listened to. Because when we talk, we don't record ourselves usually, so we don't have to re-listen to it. We don't know that we
But
say
deeply we
like
want to replicate that.
exactly. But then you find out like, oh my God, I sound like garbage. I say like every 2 words. Stuff like that. So if you guys want to learn the art of dialogue or conversation, of communication better than reading any book, just do your podcast and have interviews. Even if you're not going to publish it ever, just do it for the art of conversation, because it's a good practice. And who knows, maybe it takes off like yours will, I'm sure. Mine will, I'm sure, as long as we keep working at it and keep putting out content, especially in times like this, man, when
Yeah.
people sit at home. Let me ask you this. I'm curious because my experience has not been how I expected. Have your views went up since all of this is happening, or
I'd be lying if I told you I know anything, but I could tell you this, that instead of posting podcasts to like audio format, Spotify or what is the other one that posts?
Apple podcast? I'm
Anchor, yeah, and it distributes everything. I would say videos have been performed better. And then one of the videos that got reshared, got a little bit of more views because in the cannabis community, it was like actually a good podcast, and it went through the internal network, and it was at that time when, and I'm only like what fucking 9 podcasts in. I think what happened was like it fifth podcast, someone reshared it, and I got more traction. And you know how the community is small, like if I had, imagine this, if I had 30,000 cannabis followers, that is fucking
Mhm.
huge. And like, and if you convert and like do all the views, like that's a huge touch. But in the beginning, like I I even to this day I don't know. I just know that I base it off right now. I started basing off if I see more people visiting my profile on LinkedIn and messaging me or something, and then I see basic metrics like my views, visits, profile visits, then I know I'm doing
Mhm.
something wrong. So I'm gonna start doing something. But I haven't established the base point where I could tell a metric right away, like, oh, because I did
Okay.
this, then this, like a systemized metric.
Because my experience is views kind of drop, man, and I'm looking at other people too, and views dropped. I don't know. People are watching the news all the time. I don't know what they're doing, but I thought this would be a better time with what's going on. But
Maybe the views dropped of the people that don't really matter. I don't know, because the people that are really interested, I think they're gonna
your
still tune in.
fans, your
Yeah,
fan base, yeah, because my fan base is not 35,000. That's the number of subscribers, but
yeah.
like you have analytics and you can see you have the views, so you can figure out an average of fan, or I shouldn't say fans, I don't like that word, of followers or
Audience, yeah, but
audience, people that support you and your work.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to gauge off right now, but I think, I mean, what I see, I remember I told you to get on LinkedIn. What I see on LinkedIn, a lot more individual like cannabis business owners. They started producing more content because they know, like the biggest thing in the supply chain that hit us was like China. A lot of people that had hemp products or anything were getting it from China. So obviously, when it comes to that side of the community where the real big business is, not just selling cannabis, where there's actually warehouses involved and people and the whole supply chain, I think that struggled a little bit. But when it comes to more of entrepreneurs like us, solo people that have small businesses or maybe small teams, I think those people actually stepped up a little bit on LinkedIn. And from my observations, I see that people are posting more and they're trying to record more. In the past few days, when I just moved into this place, I logged into LinkedIn, and then in a few days, I was like, "Holy shit! This person actually started recording a podcast." So that's kind of interesting to see. Maybe in general scope, there is less views, but maybe like the smaller niche communities, I think you
Gets bit
might
bigger.
gets yeah, it might increase a little bit of views because of this thing. And I think for me, especially like from my side, coming from design side, I look at my audience is a little bit more like businesses and stuff. So I look at businesses, what they're doing, and I gauge off that. Okay, this is where my content might switch or where I'm gonna have to, I guess, pivot and stuff like that. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. I actually posted something on LinkedIn a few days ago. I was like, is there any metrics or anything around the world showing not necessarily content that's based around coronavirus, but just content increase because
yeah, because one more thing I was gonna ask you,
yeah.
since you're somebody who tries to observe what's going on. What's the situation with the cannabis industry in Colorado now with this whole lockdown? Or let me ask you, has Colorado locked down the restaurants or
Till
not
8
yet?
p.m. Till 8 p.m. It's like at 8 p.m. I'm
And
not
they're
sure.
still dine-in?
There's still no. I don't think dine-ins. I doubt it. I not everything. I don't think not everything because I know that there's still restaurants around my area that they're open. People are dining. Around me, there's a huge. It's a diverse area. A lot of Arabic people, a lot of Asians, like Korean restaurants. There's Mediterranean, Uzbek, like Russian community. So it's
Uh-huh.
very diverse. So you know how like the old traditional people are like, this shit's not gonna stop me.
Oh my
they're
God.
like they're like I'll just go take a shot at home like yeah, but like yesterday or 2 days ago I was like I saw the news and they said that the restaurants are gonna be like 8 p.m. right, so I'm like my girlfriend's like I want to get Burger King. I was like fucking 8:59. I was like I don't know if it's open. We call Burger King, drive-throughs open till 11 o'clock. We're like fuck. Let's go get it. But dispensaries, the interesting thing I started seeing is they don't allow like a lot of people in like one of
Okay.
the dispensaries that I go, they only allow two people
But
inside.
but they're still open, because that was gonna be my
Yeah,
question. Because I've
yeah,
heard,
yeah.
like in California, for example, that's on lockdown. So they're on complete
Some
lockdown.
some of them no, some of them
No,
do
I'm not
no.
talking about dispensaries.
Oh,
I'm
the
talking
state
about, yeah,
no,
but the
no.
dispensaries, I heard they're still open, or they do curbside pickup, which is awesome. I think I was gonna ask you if Denver is doing the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. On the state side, to be honest, I'm not sure. They're supposed to announce something tomorrow, but it's sort of at the same time. The governor said it's like Denver cannot get closed. Like there's so many people that rely on everything, and there's if you really look at the statistics, it's usually like it's bad areas that have to get closed out, bad counties that are not necessarily in Denver, from what I'm
Mhm.
looking at. So it's counties that are like way down south. It's like, oh, okay, they're over there, But yeah, like dispensaries took a lot of different switches. They're like one dispensary I went to, they closed down every hour to disinfect the whole place. I was standing outside. I was like, "Oh, is this closed?" Because they had a note on like due to COVID-19, like we're closed. And then dude opens, he's like, "No, no, no, we're just disinfecting everything. Every hour they do like a 10-minute cleanup, and they only allow like two people in the dispensary." So I was there, and this one guy came in. He was standing next to me, and he tried to like touch the counter. He's like, "Don't touch anything." Like, and there's like a whole bunch of squirters of hand sanitizer in every
Uh,
single corner. But I don't know. I mean, every dispensary has been like sort of different. Some of them do walk up. Some of them just only allow two people per come in. And but the best price, I mean, the best thing about it is I think the promotional offers, because I just stocked up so much right now for such a good price, man. I'm
you
like,
you can never be too safe. We don't know how long this is
all right,
gonna
listen,
be.
listen,
So
listen to this. There was a sale, Wax Wednesdays. I went to one store, every single bong was 75% off. I'm
okay,
talking about brand names, everything. I went to one dispensary. They had such sick sales. They had like 3 grams of oil for $34.
that's what I'm talking about, Illinois. Why aren't you doing the same thing? God damn it.
But it's to be honest, it's interesting to see what's going on. I mean, I guess where I moved now, it was interesting. But then my girlfriend was looking at Starbucks, so I got to tell you a funny story. The first day that they did it, the first day that they had any major announcements about like the breakout, which was like what 2 3 weeks ago, that really touched down. They stopped accepting home cups at Starbucks. You can't bring your own cup to make the
Uh-huh.
coffee. So they put that, and then the next day the people came in and they asked. He's like, "Was it only for one day here?" They already had their cups. Like they were expecting that somebody like annihilated the virus in 24 hours, and
Overnight.
they could come in with their old cup, and just like, yeah, it's good again. Huh?
Dude, it's that was one observation that I made. I was like, everybody's thinking about this as in terms of next week, like just be okay next week. We're all gonna get back to normal when literally nobody has any idea. And it's just a fun observation that I made just by interacting with people and just seeing them how. And that's me too, because in my head, so that's how we structure this shit in our heads. We have this belief that everything follows the same schedules that we do. We have one day, okay, I slept it off, tomorrow's gone, or next week, start fresh, new week. It's a weird and interesting at the same time situation we're living in.
How's
Uh,
your community reacting in Madison? How are you guys doing with the
Madison's on lockdown, dude.
lockdown, everything?
Yeah, we've all been. I mean, I work in the hospitality business as my job besides doing this, and I've been laid off, and there's a few thousand people that have been laid off till until middle of April. So for at least a month, we're unemployed. All of a sudden, dude. There's no warning, there's nothing, just boom, overnight. Sorry, guys. And it's interesting.
So
It's interesting.
what do you do during a lockdown right now? Like during the day, everything's closed too, or is there some?
No, there's you can so different restaurants, for example, they have versions of pickup. It's either curbside or window or one person at a time, or they each have different ways of doing it. There's no dine-in, so nothing that can fit more than 10 people is open. Uh, you can walk on the streets, even though it's recommended not to. Um, I think that's it. I mean, Uber, Lyft, dead. There's some delivery people that are still working, and I think
What are you doing the most?
oh, I try to like edit and shoot as much as possible, man, because it's the only way. In normal life, in normal days, I would dream about days like this where I can sit from morning to night, record, edit, shoot, and
Don't
that's the
have to
life
pay
I
about paying rent too.
dude, that's the life that I envision.
So now
I
you got
wake
an
up
opportunity to
and
kind of
now
fully.
I have a taste. So this actually keeps me positive. And if anything more, it gives me even more of an incentive to work harder at this, seeing how fragile this job I had was. It just took fucking 24 hours and I lost it. And that was my source of income. So I'm viewing this as an opportunity to get myself even more in this role, you know, add more hours to those 10,000 hours or whatever you need to become a professional. Uh, Try to get out as much content as possible. I'm trying to do a live every day. Just, if anybody wants to, I don't know, talk about something, ask me a question, because I'm sure everybody's fucking tired of looking at the same people they're in the house with, staring at the walls, because Romania is on lockdown for more than a week now. So imagine if you're in the wrong position and you're stuck in the house with the wrong people, those that week can be hell. So if I can help and I go live and I try to do at least an hour, so I try to do my part, and that also keeps me sane, and so it works both ways.
Have you thought about ever allowing, or have you ever done it first, allowing viewers to call in and just like do a video call? You know how like they do that on Instagram now, everybody
Right?
goes live and somebody requests in.
Dude, how crazy is that? You go on Instagram, everybody's doing a live. Before, you would see a live once every
I get
2 days. Now,
notifications all day right now. I'm like, damn, this person is doing a live too right now.
yeah, but to answer your question, I did one Instagram live that I did that, and it's a little bit weird, I have to say, because Instagram is not as a so the YouTube community I see it more as a like I kind of know who they are, they know
Right.
who I am. Instagram is not that personal,
Yeah,
so there's a lot
it
of
doesn't feel safe, right? Because you're like so used to this.
yeah, and then I'm accepting calls from I mean, you get a list of like 20, 30 people who want to go in a conversation with you and you're like, oh my God, I mean, now I have to pick, you know, I don't know who these people are, and now I have to pick. So then you're like, what do I, you start judging, even though you don't want to start judging. You look at their names, trying to make an idea of who this person is just by their like Instagram handles. So it's weird, and then you accept it, and then a lot of them don't. They just want it to be live on your, it's like they're chasing that fame, which, come on. And they don't really have anything to say. But there's other people who want to talk to you about some stuff, and those are fun. You can sit and talk for like 2-3 minutes, because if it's more than that, other people they're like, come on, man, you're holding up all the time. It's like, there's a dedicated piece for everyone, and everyone's just waiting their turn. It's a pretty crazy way. I think after this is over, the way we interact on social media is gonna be a little bit different than it was before. Because you get
Yeah.
people used to something, things are not just gonna go back to like this never happened. Everything's gonna change. How people do content on Instagram, how people do content on YouTube, how everything, the frequency of it. Now we're teaching people to consume more often. We do this for a few months. We're gonna have to be able to keep this up once this is done, because people are not gonna want to go back to, what, you're only putting an episode a week? What is this? I thought, or what, the corona's done now, what's going on?
They have to go back. Yeah, there's going to be a sad reality for a lot of people who are working. Imagine for the people that were working 50, 60 hours a week, and they enjoyed listening to a podcast, and now they all have this free time. And then when the reality heads back that they have to go back, it's like, shit, homie.
Yeah, dude, it's gonna be weird. I mean, just both consuming and producing online content, because that's what we're both doing.
Yeah.
Just look at how Netflix just changed how people view shows. Before Netflix, shows were, you wouldn't see Robert De Niro want to play in a series on any channel. That was for like little actors. Then Netflix came along, it blew up, and now, if the best
Yeah,
thing you
like
can do is do
the
a
format,
strong
right?
series.
The format changed, right? The word, like more people, instead of watching a movie, they want to watch the same movie like over and over again.
Yeah, dude, you need a longer story. You need more character development. You realize that this is a more complex movie, actually. I'm just breaking it down in smaller parts, so your dumbass can take
Sit
in
down.
everything, and, but you have the option to binge, so you can watch all of it. But I feel the way Netflix changed how people and what people consume as content, I feel like all what's happening now is going to have a similar impact. How or when, I have no idea. I can guess. I think people are going to want more often, and they're going to get used to consuming longer format, because now we're going to talk about this like before Corona and after Corona. So before Corona, very short attention span. I think this will help our
It's
attention
interesting.
span. Yeah, and we're going to have more patience to actually, so podcasts are going to take off even more, I feel like.
I wanted to ask you about did you recently establish the Patreon, and like how the transition when you started getting some sort of income from YouTube? When did that happen? And then when was like that oh shit moment, like maybe I should create the page, people will support me a little bit more.
Okay, so with Patreon, I think it was a couple of years ago when I opened up my Patreon. And it actually, when I opened it, from the get-go, I had like 15 Patreons. That was the most I've ever had. So, you know, I didn't expect anyone to do it. And when people started donating, and, Patreon is month to month, so it's kind of it's a, I don't even know what to call it. You develop a relationship, because you as a patron, you spend money, you offer this person money so they can do their stuff. So me as a creator, I kind of start feeling a little bit weird, because now I have a responsibility. So that changed. And in the beginning, that wasn't very clear with me. I kind of took it for granted. But inside my head, I still had that worry, and I knew that I was in a way responsible, because And I had stretches where I didn't put anything out because life happens, because it's a hobby, because, stuff happens. But then months passed and I saw that, some people started leaving, and I wasn't going to email them and ask you, hey, what's wrong? Why you? Because I knew, I knew what the motive was. So that made me be a little bit more responsible. And then the big twist happened when YouTube allowed me to have channel members. And I opened that, and all of a sudden, 50 people became members, which is the same thing as Patreon, is like a month-to-month subscription. It's just you control everything from YouTube. So the problem with Patreon is hard to connect. It's like an outside party that you need to connect with everything else. It's on YouTube, since most of my content is on YouTube, I have everything over there, so it's everything under one
Just
roof.
YouTube takes 50%, right?
Does it?
Something like this, right? When off the monthlies. Because I remember when I used
don't
to,
know if
because when I used to watch, kind of when I used to watch one of the comedians and he had like the monthlies, I think it was like 40 or 50% YouTube like split.
Ooh, I know they do like 30% for like stickers and super chats. So for donations that you get during the live. But for the membership, I don't know. That wouldn't be cool, dude.
Gotta check it
If they
out.
took, yeah, I'm gonna have to look into it. Yeah, so the big twist happened then because I was like, oh, holy shit, this, and it's not a lot of money. It's just a little bit over $200. It's nothing that you can quit your job for. But it's month to month, and then when I do my lives prior to this happening, people would, donate. Even like there were days when I was making over $100 in like a couple of hours being on the live. Just, and it's not like I wasn't going over there and begging. People just wanted to, like, I don't know, they want to support, and
Yeah,
some
that
people
was it.
had
Yeah, yeah,
disposable income, and I don't mind it, man. Like, my goal right now is to do just this
yeah.
and not have to do my jobs and all of the stuff, because I'm almost 31 and I'm sick of that, man. I've got to that point where I know what I want to do. I don't want to waste any more time doing what I don't enjoy. And this is a good opportunity with what's going on. But having 50 members, I think I have like 8 or 10 Patreons right now. Then I have this partnership with the backdrop that you see, which is like a news show. Yeah, it's a cannabis news show that I do with this company. So they're paying me to do that, which is good. It's like my side job. I do 2 episodes a month. It's a little bit of money that comes in just from doing this. So slowly I start monetizing. I also have a shop that, I make some money on. So, you gather income from different sources. Even though it's not a lot, you put it together and you're like, oh, it's almost a third of what I need for my month expenses. I'll keep going, try and do better content, try and find even more interesting things for the people to watch. And maybe I can scale that, you know, maybe those people are going to upgrade their memberships. Maybe I'm going to get more members. But now I'm in the point where I'm not looking for the million subscriber, for that magic number anymore,
Yeah.
because when you start YouTube, you're always like, for some reason, I don't know, in my head, maybe that's the same with other people. There was like the million number in my head. But now seeing that you can achieve a position where you can have an income with even having just a few thousand or 30 some thousands, as many as I have, it kind of made me look away from that magic number and just start focusing more on the quality and me putting out content for the people who are watching at this moment, instead of chasing hopefully new, members. And I still have new people coming in on the channel, you know but right now I'm trying to like strengthen the relationship that I have with people who are already on my platform and who are already watching me, because like you said, 30 some thousand is a large number, like you said at the beginning of the podcast. And you'll see that changes with, when you're there, you don't see it. It's the grass is greener on the other side type of thing. You're at 100, you're like, man, if I wish I had 1,000. When I'm gonna hit 1,000, I'm gonna be really happy. You're at 1,000 and your mind's already at 10,000, and so on and so on. So I'm at 30 some thousand, and I look at it and I'm there's still a higher number that I'm chasing. But now I don't focus all my attention on just that number. And I've reached a point where I try and devote most of my focus and energy on keeping the people that I already have and trying to find different ways that I can, I don't know, finance this project. I look at it as a project so it's sustainable long term, because I've been doing it for 3 years, and I've put a lot of stuff on the side, so I can do it. So I've kind of not been able to work as much or have the jobs that I could have like a higher income. So financially, I've sacrificed a little bit. Before this, I drove a semi, then I had my own trucking business. So I was used to a level of income that there's no way I'm gonna be able to achieve it if I want to do this. So basically now I work just to be able to pay the bills and try to focus. Like I have that lockdown. That's something that I have to do, just like breathing, drinking water, eating. But then everything else, all my energy and all of my attention gets focused to this because I see that little light now and I want to chase it because I want to fucking get to it before I lose interest. People get bored, and I can't guarantee that I won't get bored if I don't get to the next level where I want to. And you'll see once you hit certain goals that you have, you're gonna achieve new ones. I mean, you're gonna set new ones and you're gonna chase new ones. And I think that's the thing that keeps it interesting. But the numbers are not that important. I think they distracted me more than anything. Because like I told you before, I was having periods of time where I wasn't doing shit, and in my head it was always an excuse. But now, since I have a little bit of an obligation, I'm more aware of my bullshit, and when I try to like find excuses not to do stuff, and I don't know, man, I'm learning, so it's all I can say. It's fun though.
All right, before we go, I don't know why I didn't ask you in the
Yeah,
beginning.
go for it.
What is your Instagram handle name mean? I'm looking at it, Pefilmulmeu.
Oh my God, man! See, that's the heavy thing with when you have to do something in two languages. Uh, so it's gonna be Pefilmulmeu, but I'm sure it's gonna be way more helpful if there's a link in the description if people want to
We'll put
check.
everything, yeah.
More importantly, I don't know. I wish there was an automatic thing that just subtitles your videos. That would be awesome, dude. I hope somebody gets so bored.
Transcribers, yeah.
Just an
Maybe, maybe,
automatic.
maybe, maybe you should ask one of your fans to do it, to transcribe it.
I
Add
did
the
do.
allowance. Did that work or no? How
I
did that
did
go?
do. They did one episode, and I never heard of them again. It,
Ah!
it's tedious work, man. It's not easy. That's why I don't do it. But I feel like it would have so much value. What I'm gonna try and do, I just filmed a video like how to decarb weed,
Mhm.
and I've did it in Romanian, of course. But it's a short video, so I'm thinking about putting subtitles on it in English just as an experiment, because now I have time, and with the video being short, I
Más o
can
menos,
do
yeah.
it. I'm just trying to see what impact it would have, and I don't know. Maybe that's the way I'll be able to communicate with my English speaking audience if there ever is one. But yeah, links in the description. I'll leave everything: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook.
What does all right? So what does the Instagram name mean?
Also, that's the name of my channel. It doesn't have like a
Or how did you
Tran
come up with it or something?
translation in English. It's one of those things. I'm sure you speak Lithuanian. You probably do, right?
Yeah, of course, every
Yeah.
day.
So you know there's expressions that you can say in English or in Lithuanian that you can't say in the other language. So
Yep,
it
yep.
basically means like in my own movie, like I'm doing my own thing type of thing, but like
It's like a slang. It's like a
Pefilmulmeu.
Romanian slang or something. A lot of people understand.
Yeah, so it has a meaning in Romanian. It's just I can't translate it in English because there's not a translation
Yeah,
for it.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
not a saying but it basically means like I'm just doing my own thing. Like I'm writing my own script, I'm playing my own movie, I'm the hero of my own story. I don't give a, you know, you guys do what you want. Everybody is free to do whatever they feel. So that's basically what it means. I don't know why I came up with that when I did it. I was playing in my head with different stuff, but I don't know, man. Again, not having any social media experience, I didn't even know that tags was a thing or keywords or stuff like that. I had no idea, man, And when you're not aware of that, you know, the names that you choose are not always but it caught up, people use it, people like it, and I would have to come up with an English one though if if I would have to do content in English. I would need a totally new channel. That's the problem.
Maybe just the same thing. I just put English. I don't know, English version. I don't know. Maybe
Do like a playlist, English
or
vlog.
maybe yeah, or maybe just start doing on the current channel just English. I think it's gonna be a interesting rollover because you're possibly gonna gain like a general audience and even like the Romanian kids and the people that watch you. I think they're gonna tend to because it's like all right, so they listen to Romanian. Obviously, for the people that can't understand any English, yeah, the Romanian videos are very valuable. But then it's like the language, like you're listening to a Romanian speaking English, and then like in Romania, people dream about probably America and just speaking English. So it's like a cool interaction. You know what I'm saying?
I'll blow your mind, guys. I'll blow your minds. No, I mean, again, a lot of people in Romania speak English, and that's an awesome thing because we had the luck to grow up with no subtitles on our movies or cartoons. There was no like voiceovers. So it was either you understand or not. There were no Romanian movies. So that's how most of us learned English, cartoons, music, and movies. So I wouldn't be worried about the not being understood element.
All right, we're nearing hour and a half almost. Before we head out, what are
Yeah,
you
dude.
up to? Talk about your project. What are you up to? About your goals? Spread some message. Freestyle. Your time to shine.
Ooh, I didn't know there was such a thing. Yes, so I don't know, man. I want to keep on doing what I'm doing in trying to educate and inform people from my country because I don't want us to fall behind at this chapter too, because we're behind at so many things. It's just sad. And since leaving my country, I've always felt that I kind of owe something, you know, for not going through the same struggles as them or I don't know. I know it's all in my head, but so this is my way of giving back, and I'm not gonna stop until people are able to enjoy what I'm enjoying freely. And the means and ways on how I'm gonna achieve that, I don't know yet, but switching or adding English content might be on the list. So for all of you guys who are interested in seeing how a Romanian stoner looks at life, and it's a pretty interesting social experiment. I feel like with you, the same thing, being from Lithuania and then moving here. You're a little bit different because you moved at a younger age with your family. So I came in my young adulthood. But it's always interesting to see how people from different parts of the world go through the same problems and issues and have different ways of looking at them because of the culture that they come from. And yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty fun, so they say. So uh, I'm sure there's gonna be links if you guys want to check my stuff out. I'll be more than happy to have you on my channel, and if there's a pretty nice number of you, I'll even make sure to have some English content put out right away, and that's a promise.
Are you open to any, maybe since you got a little bit of more exposure, maybe channel sending you or brand sending you products or anything to test out? Are you interested in that?
Dude, of course. Anytime, anyone, swag for I'll give shout outs. I believe in free stuff, so hit me up.
Yeah, dude. Any brands listen, any businesses, something. He's international, so
Oh yeah,
it's.
if you guys doing international business, and I know cannabis itself is not legal everywhere in the world, but the country that I come from, you can sell accessories, glass, pipes, bongs, whatever, you name it. You can sell CBD, you can. So, if you guys are thinking about the international market, I don't know, hit me up, and if I like your stuff, I'll be more than happy to wrap it.
Bam.